Chapter 13, Divine Nutrition. The high priest once told my father in conversation, "Your great-granddaughter, Moise, knows the mysteries of being which were concealed from us. She knows the secrets of nourishing both the body and the spirit. You yourself, of course, ascertained this from her own words. One should eat just as one breathes." Footnote quoted from Book 1, Chapter 4, Who Are They? Our forebears once read these words on the walls of their secret temples. We believed them to be meaningful, but up until now their secret has not been revealed. In explaining just a little of it to those who will be creating their own family domains, she will thereby create the conditions for the speed of thinking of these new domain dwellers to exceed our own. Compared to children born in her domains, we shall appear to be simply ignorant youngsters. In setting out her design, she showed us the only way out. Each of us must set up the same kind of domain she has described to everyone. We shall establish them, we shall try to make them better and more perfect than the rest, and for that we have great possibilities. She is revealing the mysteries of being to everyone, and by the time we learn about them, we shall already have our domains, while others will still be going about setting up their own. And then, once again, the difference in the speed of our thinking will allow us to foresee and consequently control life on the planet. This is what I have been thinking. I should like to hear your opinion on this, Moise." And my father replied, "You want to hear my opinion because you have your doubts. You want to foresee what situation Anastasia will be visualizing in case the priests, and you, who have appointed yourself to the highest position, are the first to set up the domains which will draw you closer to the divine being. You want to know whether her thought has taken such a scenario into account?" "Well, I'm convinced that she has," the high priest replied to father, "and she herself does not conceal the fact. But I should like to hear your opinion on why she is openly daring us by giving us the opportunity to reassert our control over the world." "All because," my father answered the highest priest, "my great-granddaughter Anastasia is not about to enter into a confrontation with you. When the priests, as the rulers of the earth, begin creating their own domains, their thoughts will be transformed. Their souls will become radiant with light." "Thank you, Moise. Our thoughts have come together as one, and I applaud the prospect of living in another reality, possibly in one where each of us can talk with God." "I bow before your great-granddaughter's thought, Moise. May Anastasia succeed in finding the strength within herself to overcome the system we created like a wild beast or a herd of beasts. Help her if you can, Moise." "Try helping her yourself. I cannot keep up with her more youthful thought. I used to think her actions were illogical." "And I shall not be able to either, Moise. She eats just as she breathes. We have been soiling our flesh. I have not the strength to nourish my spirit the way that she nourishes hers. I can only guess at what is helping her." In the times of our pristine origins, people's way of life was quite different from today's. They not only knew nature, they controlled it. Through the sounds of nature and the power of the light of the heavenly bodies, they had access to the database of the universe. They received information not just through their mind, but through their feelings as well. The speed of their thinking was many times greater than that of people today. The early priesthood realized that absolute control over mankind was possible only if they could achieve a considerably greater speed of thinking than other people. But how to achieve this goal? One of the ancient priests once said in a secret conversation with the high priest, "We cannot accelerate our thought to achieve sufficient superiority over everybody else, but we can use special devices to slow down the thinking of all mankind." "You said all mankind. Does that include your own thought?" the high priest responded. Yes, in the final analysis it does, but to a much lesser extent. The discrepancy will be tremendous. The advantage will be on our side. Since you are talking about it, that means you have already found a way of slowing down the thought of all mankind. Tell me about it. It is simple. We need to conceal from people the existing divine method of nutrition. We need to have them consume food that does not accelerate but rather slows thought down. That is the main condition. The rest is a chain reaction. The degradation of thought will bring a number of factors into play which will influence the speed of their thinking. Compared to us, everybody else will be inferior. How can we conceal what God offers to everyone? We promote the necessity of giving gratitude to God for what He offers. I have it. You have come up with a monstrous plan, but it is perfect. People will agree to give gratitude to the Creator and will not see anything wrong with it. We shall think up rituals to draw people away from God's first-hand creations. People will begin thinking that they are giving God thanks, but the more time they spend on giving thanks, gathering around the idols we think up, the less communication they will have with God's own creations, and the farther removed they will be from the information coming straight from God. They will be receiving information from us, but imagining that it is God's will. Their thought will go off in the wrong direction. We shall lead it in the wrong direction. Centuries passed, and people spent more and more time on the rituals thought up by the priests, thinking all along that they were simply paying their respects to God. At the same time, people communicated less and less with the Creator's first-hand creations and consequently no longer had access to the information of the universe in all its fullness, God's information. They caused God pain and suffering, all the while believing that they were bringing Him joy. At the same time, the priests began telling people what kind of food they should be giving preference to, at the same time creating for themselves the secret science of dietetics. The priests needed to maintain their brain, their spirit, and their physical health, and consequently, their thought, in a more efficient operational state than other people's. Thus, they suggested that people planted certain kinds of growing things, but they themselves used other kinds for food, more specifically in a greater variety than the rest. Thus began a monstrous degradation of human consciousness. Man began to know disease of both body and soul. People intuitively sensed the meaning of nutrition, and over the millennia tried to come to terms with this question. Wise men appeared who attempted to give advice on what food products were the most healthful. Many teachings on dietetics were introduced. It was a topic touched upon in the books that you are familiar with, such as the Bible and the Quran. Here is what it says about nutrition in the Old Testament, for example. You shall not eat any abominable thing. These are the animals you may eat: ox, sheep, goat, buck, gazelle, roebuck, wild goat, wild-rumped deer, long-horned antelope, and rock goat. You may eat any animal which has a parted foot or a cloven hoof, and also choose the cud. You may not eat the camel, the hare, the rock badger. You shall regard them as unclean. And the pig, because it has a cloven hoof but does not chew the cud, you shall regard as unclean. You shall not eat their flesh, or even touch their dead carcasses. Of creatures that live in the water, you may eat all those that have fins and scales, but you may not eat any that have neither fins nor scales. You shall regard them as unclean. You may eat all clean birds. These are the birds you may not eat: the griffin vulture, the black vulture, the bearded vulture, the kite, every kind of falcon, every kind of crow, the desert owl, the short-eared owl, the long-eared owl, every kind of hawk, the tawny owl, the screech owl, the little owl, the horned owl, the osprey, the fisher owl, the stork, any kind of cormorant, the hoopoe, and the bat. All seeming winged creatures you shall regard as unclean. They may not be eaten. You may eat every clean insect. You shall not eat anything that has died a natural death. You shall give it to the aliens who live in your settlements, and they may eat it, or you may sell it to a foreigner, for you are a people holy to the Lord your God. Footnote. Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 3 through 21, cited here from the New English Bible. Over the millennia, various books were written advertising people what and how to eat to be healthy, but not a single book, not a single wise man, or indeed all the scholars put together, have ever been able to fully shed light on this question. The proof may be seen in the ever-increasing numbers of diseases of the human body and soul. A whole multitude of books were published advising how to treat disease, and today you have the science of medicine. They tell you it is constantly being perfected, but at the same time, just look at how the number of sick people is constantly increasing. So what is medical science actually perfecting? The results speak for themselves. It is perfecting disease. I see that this conclusion sounds strange to you, but just think, why don't the whole masses of animals in natural surroundings get sick, while man, who considers himself to be the most highly developed of all creatures, is unable to cope with his own diseases? The science you call upon to treat disease has never, over the whole period of its existence, ever touched upon the ultimate cause of all disease. It has always given its attention to effect. People who are sick, of course, need doctors, but it is no less true under the current conditions of your world order that doctors need sick people to treat. But even among the priests themselves, the speed of thinking has been declining, not to the level of everyone else's, but still diminishing. This phenomenon disturbed the priests more than any other. They paid more and more attention to the mysteries of the divine nutrition, but could not unravel them. One of the priests assigned to take care of the science of dietetics, apparently figured out something and began writing it on the wall of the secret underground chamber where no one except for a few of the main priests could enter. He wrote, "One should eat just as one breathes." After writing the last letter of the last word of the sentence, or rather just before finishing the last letter, the old priest died. He had not managed to explain the meaning of this sentence to anybody, either to his descendant successor or to any of the other priests. Priests have been trying to unravel the mystery of the phrase, "one should eat just as one breathes," over the millennia since. They were afraid that somebody else might get wind of it and guess the secret before they did. They erased it, rubbed it off the wall of their temple, but they transmitted it orally to succeeding generations of their descendants, in the hope that it would be deciphered in the future. All to no avail. Astrologers, healers, and wise men appointed by political rulers worked on the question of nutrition over many thousands of years. Nobody was able to solve the puzzle. Any of the rulers' wise men had managed to figure out how man should feed himself. Then those rulers that considered themselves to be the strongest in the world would have ceased to fall ill, and their longevity would have increased. If any of the earthly rulers had known what kind of food he should take in, he could have become the supreme ruler of the earth. The speed of his thinking could have surpassed that of the priests. But all the rulers of the earth get sick and die. Their longevity is no greater than that of the ordinary people, even though they may have the best healers and the wise men right at hand. And so the degradation of human society continues. It seems to be just in passing that Anastasia uttered that sentence to you, "One should eat just as one breathes." You published it in a book. You published it in the context of your experience with her, and you did not give it any special thought. But for the priests living today, the publication of that sentence, the one that had been erased from the walls of their temple more than 5,000 years ago, became a cause for very great concern. Time and again they gave careful readings to the books with Anastasia's sayings, and realized that not only did she know the phrase, but she had full knowledge of divine nutrition. The speed of thinking of a man possessing such knowledge would naturally be able to surpass that of all the other priests taken together, and consequently be able to control all of humanity, including the priests. But in order to maintain control, he would have to conceal information, while he or she has gone and revealed it to everybody. This means she has freed people from the priest's influence, thereby leading them to direct communication with the thoughts of God. This was something they realized after seeing how Anastasia slipped in among her sayings information on the nourishment of Adam. In Co-Creation, you cited Anastasia's words about how people were nourished back at the time of their pristine origins. This is quoted from Book 4, Chapter 4, The First Day. All around him were a multitude of fruits with a variety of tastes, berries, and edible grasses. But during those first days, Adam felt no sense of hunger. He remained satisfied with fresh air alone. One certainly cannot live on the air man breathes today. Today's air is dying, and it is often harmful to one's body and soul. You mentioned the saying that one cannot live on air, but there is another saying. I have been fed on air alone, by air alone, which corresponds to what was available to man in the beginning. Adam was born in a marvelous garden, and the air surrounding him did not contain a single harmful particle. Pollen had been dissolved into that air, along with the purest drops of dew. Pollen? What kind of pollen? Pollen from flowers and grasses, from trees and fruit, which diffused fragrances into the air. Some came from those close by, while breezes brought others from distant places. Back then, man was not distracted from his great works by any problems of finding food. He was fed by everything around him through the air. This was the way it was, all designed by the Creator right from the very beginning, so that all life on earth should strive to please man. And the air and the water and the breeze would be life-giving, under the impulse of love. Of course, people's diet at the time of their divine, pristine origins was not confined to life-giving air. They consumed a lot else besides, but their body and soul were nourished by air and water to a significant degree. When you published Anastasia's words about nutrition, the priests were astonished at how the simplest of truths had escaped them for so long. Yet all along, they knew why this was so. Secluding themselves in their temples, they were not able to breathe the pollen-laden air. In gathering people together for rituals where the only thing in the crowds raised was dust, they ended up breathing dust of their own schemes. The priests understood the significance of nutrition. Their diet included teas containing many healing herbs, along with a variety of fruits and vegetables. Among other things, they attached considerable importance to cedar oil, which their attendants brought them from far-off places. Moreover, their diets also included honey and flower pollen gathered by bees. But Anastasia showed that this was far from being sufficient. It was a different kind of pollen, for one thing. The pollen that the bees gathered and packed into a honeycomb was quite helpful, of course, but it was a far cry from the variety that could be found in the air over one's family space. Bees, after all, gather pollen from a relatively small number of floral species, but the air contains all varieties, and it is distinguished from bee-produced pollen by its softness and its easy digestibility. Airborne pollen is alive, capable of fecundation, fecundation. With each breath, a man would take it in, and it dissolved inside, nourishing his entire body, including his brain. When the priests saw Anastasia talking about family domains, a hectare of one's own motherland for each family, they realized she was taking people back to a way of life that was part and parcel of their pristine origins. They knew right away that family domains are not only capable of bringing people material benefits, there is something much more important. In the context of Anastasia's sayings, people can form a space capable of nourishing their body, soul, and spirit, and show to everyone openly the truths of the divine order of creation. The time is approaching when mankind will be presented simultaneously in two worlds. It will be able to make use both of the achievements of the technocratic artificial world, as well as its own divine, pristine origins. By comparing these two worlds, not through hearsay, but firsthand, through observing their own experience, people will be able to make their own choice or create a new world. They will be able to create their own marvelous divine future. Anastasia showed people not only the meaning and essence of divine nutrition, but how to attain it as well. Her family domains. Picture to yourself, Vladimir, a morning time. A man awakens at dawn and goes out of his house into the garden of his family domain, in which are growing more than 300 varieties of plants that he needs. He has taken up the habit of walking around his property every morning. As he walks along the path, his eyes are delighted by the lively variety of herbs, trees, and flowers. These cannot help but delight and furnish him with positive emotions. Nothing can give him a greater emotional charge or abundant energy than one's own family, life-giving space. Many ages passed. In each of them, attempts were made to attract mankind to all sorts of different values. Man became enthralled with a huge house, or the latest clothing, or a new car, or some other gadget. Man became enthralled with money and his position in society. But all such joys are conditional and fleeting. They only bring a temporary sense of happiness and pleasure, and within a short space of time they become commonplace, bothersome, and even sometimes downright annoying. An old and decaying house will begin to demand constant repair. A car, too, can start having frequent breakdowns. Clothes wear out. Man has always intuitively felt the true beauty and perfection of the eternal, and that is why even a king surrounded by luxury and personal palaces has always needed a garden. This is a truth that has remained unshakable for millions of years of man's life on the earth. True delight and peace is attainable only in one's own family domain. When a man takes his morning walk through his family domain, every blade of grass is delighted and reacts to him. And far from decaying, his garden grows with every passing moment of blessed living. The man understands that the program he has set out, trees, bushes, and fruit bearers planted by his own hand, will not decay, but live on through the ages. They will live forever, provided the man does not change his mind. When the man takes his morning walk through his family domain, he breathes its air, and with each breath takes in thousands of invisible particles, plant pollen. The air is saturated with them. Quite alive, they enter the man, dissolving within him without a trace, nourishing his body with everything that he needs. And the air of one's family domain nourishes not only the human body, but feeds the spirit with ethers and accelerates the thought. When the man takes his morning walk through his family domain, he may stop all of a sudden and pick 3 berries off a currant bush and eat them. Why does he stop in front of a currant bush in particular? Why does he pick precisely 3 berries? In what book of wisdom has man read that on this particular day he will need these 3 berries? And he really does need them, it turns out. He needs them on this very day, this very minute, and in this very quantity. Then after taking another few steps, the man bends over to smell a flower. Why does he do this? Who told him of the particular need to take in the aromatic ether of this flower in particular? And several steps farther, he picks something more to eat. When the man takes his morning walk through his family domain, he smiles, thinks about something personal, while all at the same time enjoys a surfeit of fruits, not thinking about them, but feeling them. This man has been eating just as he breathes. Who then has been calculating the man's dietetic needs with such incredible accuracy? Where has all this information been recorded for every man born on the earth? This information, you realize, Vladimir, this information is present in every man born on the earth. Note this. Every man contains a mechanism, I can't seem to find an alternative word, capable of arousing the sense of hunger, a signal that his body and spirit require some kind of sustenance in the universe. We need not specify just what exactly, the proportion or quantity. Nobody can answer this question intellectually. Only your body knows about this. And this is what selects just 3 currant berries out of the entire variety available. But in order to afford the opportunity for the right choice, your body must have all the information available about them, and it is only in one's family domain that such information is accessible. Let's say you go into a store where there are a whole lot of fruits spread out on the counters. You want an apple. You say a whole huge variety of apples. Which kind to choose? An exact choice is impossible, since your body, which is capable of making an exact choice, does not have any information about the apples on the counters. It hasn't tried them. It doesn't know the taste and correlation of substances. Neither does it know when the apples were picked, which is very important as well. As a result, the apples you purchase at the store may turn out to be beneficial, but their benefit will be not nearly so great as when your body is apprised of all the information about the product you are making it digest. The product you ingest may turn out to be harmful to your body, in which case disease makes an appearance. Such a thing could not happen in your family domain, since you know for absolute certain which trees produce the sweeter or more sour apples, and when they are ready for you. Your body receives all the information about the fruits in your family domain. It received all the information about them back when you were still in your mother's womb, and afterward, when you drank milk from your mom's breast. Your mom, after all, delighted in the very same fruits, and they contributed to the consistency of her milk. And now, as a grown man, when a man is in the space of his kin's domain, he tastes the fruits and the berries, everything that went into the consistency of his mother's milk. There is another concept in your civilization. It's healthful for a man to consume fresh produce. But what exactly is fresh produce? Not frozen, dried, tinned, or sealed in barrels like you thought, but produce that comes to you in its natural state. And you have cultivated a huge assortment of hybrid varieties that can be preserved many days with the appearance of fresh produce. Believe me, the appearance of freshness is deceptive and harmful. Now, if you can make sense of what I've just said and test it out for yourself, see if you can make sense of it. Almost all berries can be considered fresh for no more than a few minutes. Cherries, both sweet and wild, and apples will last an hour, tops. But they still change with every minute that goes by, mutating into something else. Pick a cherry and leave it just overnight, then take it back to the tree where it came from and eat it. Then pick another cherry from the very same branch and taste it. See, you will taste the difference. Which cherry is fresher and tastier, even with your eyes closed. As for raspberries, you'll notice the difference after only an hour, while some other kinds of fruit might take 24 hours. And you will see that anyone who does not have a family domain, no matter how rich or important he may be, cannot take in fresh food. That means he is not as capable of quick thinking as he might be otherwise. Even back in ancient treatises, wise men attempted to set forth their perceptions as to what produce was the most healthful for man in any given season. And this is very important. But among all these, there is only one treatise, which remains inviolable. Inviolable. And that is the one which God himself prepared for each individual man. Look for yourself and see how gradually, starting in the spring, the early plants bring forth their fruits. Others appear late in the summer, at its beginning or end, while the autumn gives rise to a variety of other plants. What is there to write about here when it has been so obviously set forth what one should eat and when? And not just in broad terms of months or seasons, the choice is hinted at moment by moment. You need only think about it, Vladimir, to understand. It is as though the Creator is ready to spoon-feed man with his own hand. Just think how perfect and exact his program is. There is a particular season of the year when any given species of fruit ripens. At the same time, the planets are in a particular arrangement. And that is the most favorable season for that man to take in that fruit. It was at that very moment, the most appropriate moment as indicated by God, that man decided to take in the fruit, as his body suddenly felt a desire for it. There was no question of man's working all this out through calculation. Man did not make a problem out of what to ingest and when. He simply ate. He ate because he felt like eating, and it pleased him to do so. And at the same time, his thought was elated with joint co-creation. His thought danced ahead, no longer concerning itself with what had been planned in advance by the Father's hand. It desired to create even more so that everyone could rejoice in the contemplation at the sight of a new creation. And the Father exclaimed in delight, "My Son is a creator," as he fed his child with his creations.